Greetings, one and all. Here we are again with another Foundational Friday broadcast, although we are actually broadcasting this on Saturday. So I'm giving myself away. We had to reschedule last Friday's show and then, of course, this Friday's show. So we are kind of doing a combination of shows, but we are coming to you live and direct Saturday. And we have a very interesting show this season. Obviously, our last show, or show before the last, was February 14th, and I was going to do a show on that day, highlighting some information that people may be interested in being aware of as it pertains to Valentine's Day, which is a commonly celebrated, and acknowledged celebratory day. I guess we could call it a holy day or a holiday, depending on what your perspective is. But I figured maybe I would give a little bit of information on that day, so people can maybe make some informed decisions on what they wanted to do this year, February 14th, in celebration of Saint Valentine and Cupido. But we're going to get into that. But in this show, not only are we going to tap on Valentine's Day, but we're also going to look into the movie Pan's Labyrinth. As some of you may have noticed, every month now I've been scheduling some form of movie decoding. But this month I said I would include movie decoding along with, a film. Movie decoding with holiday decoding, because of course February 14th is so big for so many people. It's the opportunity to get all of their cupcaking in, for all the guys, all your simping and cupcaking. But for those of you who, acknowledge and celebrate it. But for the rest of us who may be interested in the meaning behind it, I figured I would give some information, as well as this movie Pan's Labyrinth. Now, some of you guys may remember in the past, in some of the other shows, I've referenced Pan's Labyrinth, and I've definitely recommended people to watch Pan's Labyrinth. And some have watched it, like some of the students, and reached back out and gave their feedback and, things that they saw. I really enjoy when I can give movies to students and they come back with their decoding. That's really what it's about. I'm really not interested in just spoon-feeding information. So when I know that people are, really working the brain and looking and intuiting and doing all those things, it's great. It's an honor for me to be able to hear what you've been able to come up with or what you were able to see, and maybe to build on it with you and give you a little direction here and there. But it's like watching a tree grow, really, just to see. Sometimes people will come in and decode, and then next year they'll come with more decoding, and then I can see the growth and the perception and the intuition, and just in the sight. And this movie, Pan's Labyrinth, was very much about who sees and who does not see. One of the things that you will notice is that there was a theme throughout the movie of the eye, or eyes, but more importantly, the eye, singular eye, the uni eye, or the third eye, or the first eye, or the ori waju, or the brow chakra. But that first eye vision was something that the director and writer had really focused on pretty heavy with this particular film, which was good. But before we get into the breakdowns, as always, I try to get my ANU housekeeping out of the way. But for those of you who've been looking for the archive shows, just so you know, they are no longer on the Sadulu House website. We're kind of going through an overhaul right now with our ANU services. So we're kind of segmenting the site so they're more thematic. So we don't have, everything on one site over here and then half of it on the other side. So there is now a site for the actual show, Enlightenment and Transformation. So if you go to that URL, enlightenmentandtransformation.com, you can see all of the old archive shows, the postings that were associated with it, as well as the newer shows as well. Soon we'll have up, it should be up, actually by the time this airs for everyone around the world, we should have all of the host bios up and a couple other pieces in there, as well as some snippets of our event calendar. So I definitely want you to check that out. For those of you who want to check out archive posts, archive shows, of course you can always go through Blog Talk and just look through the menu there or search there on Blog Talk for our old shows. That's cool too. But as we're in the process of transitioning ourselves from different platforms, it would be easier to just go to Enlightenment Transformation, because Blog Talk may not be a mainstay forever. So that way, if you bookmark Enlightenment Transformation, you'll always, be up to breast on what's going on. And the same goes for those of you who are interested in classes. Always, if you're interested, start at SaduluHouse.com or SaduluHouse.org. Some of you go straight to Udemy, which is fine, but if we cease to use Udemy in the future, then you may not find us there, but you will always find us at SaduluHouse.com or OrishaReligion.com. Okay? So you want to kind of just make sure you bookmark those, and so you'll have a way to get in there. All right. One of the things that's been happening recently too is that a lot of people have been attempting to join the Facebook ANU Spiritual Training Group. I'm going to reiterate for maybe the new people who hadn't heard it before. That group is strictly for registered students. Okay, so for those of you who have put in requests like 10, 15, 20 days ago and think we're snubbing you, it's not that. Typically we'll email you and say, are you a registered student? This is for registered students. But you actually give my admins a lot more work than need be, because they have to respond to all these people trying to get into the group. And it says only about us on the group that it is for registered students only. But I know sometimes it's easier, we just click join without really looking, at all of the specs for the group. So I just want to reiterate that for those of you who have tried to enter the group and have not gotten in. It's for registered students only, but never fear, we are in the process of putting up a public forum outside of Facebook for you all. It's actually already up. We're tweaking it now, and how we want it to look and feel, and what rooms and everything will be in there. So there will be a section for those who are not in the class, a general piece where you can speak to each other mainly, and maybe a few of the students and things like that. And then there'll be a section or just a separate forum for students who can interact and speak with me and things like that. So, for those of you who have tried to join the group, please make sure you go to any of the ANU websites and sign up for the newsletter. Because if you sign up for the newsletter, then you'll get the link to the forum. Okay? That's the best way to do it. Don't send in an email. Don't call. Just sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the information on the forums that you need. Okay? Sign up for the newsletter. You can get the newsletter at Orisha Religion, Yuya Assaan-ANU. You can get it at SaduluHouse.org.com, ANUNation.org. Pretty much all the sites have a sign-up form for the newsletter. And it's very important, as I've said before, when you get the newsletter, to read it. Okay, when you get the newsletter, read it. Has been another little epidemic. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for you all, so you would, those who are not a part of the class, or maybe it's just not your time to join right now, you can't join, although you should. We have a form that we're putting together, which will have a general space. Now, we'll make it clear too, I won't really be in that general forum. Okay, so for all of you who are going to be dropping in dream interpretations and can I get a quick reading from Yuya, like you've been trying to do on Facebook, that's not going to happen. Okay, so it's not a place for you to get free services. It's not that, at least not free services that everyone else has to give a shrine donation for. If you want to give a shrine donation and input it, that's fine. So let me give you that warning ahead of time. But in any event, that's enough of that. Sometimes when we have organizations, and this is for anyone who's out there trying to make something happen for themselves, it can be a little bit monotonous having to always go over the rules when you're dealing with certain populations, but this is what helps to establish and maintain order, because once you lose order, you begin to become embittered with your own organization or your own business or your own adventure or project. So you always want to make sure you're establishing some form of parameters, some lines of demarcation that you won't cross and that will not be crossed on the other way. And that keeps you really from becoming embittered, which is a very common thing that happens with entrepreneurs and those who are really trailblazers and frontier men and women who are trying to go out there and do something innovative. When you don't really put down enough structure and enough framework as to how you are going to work and how you would not work, it can really become a big, gigantic mess, and eventually you'll just work yourself towards a breakdown, and I don't want to do this anymore. So before that happens, it's good, even if it's a little tedious or it feels a little monotonous, it's okay to go over the rules and keep broadcasting them, or just write up the rules and keep sending it out, because when you're dealing with certain populations, as the saying goes, certain types of people are habitual line steppers, so they will always try to push the threshold of what can be gotten away with. And this could turn you off completely from wanting to work with populations that actually need you. When you look at the numbers of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he was dealing with the 5% who were the poor righteous teachers, and the 10% were the ones who were leading people deeper into the wilderness though they knew the truth, and then the 85% were deaf, dumb, and blind to the truth, who were living in triple stage darkness. Sometimes you could spend so much time trying to run behind the 85% and quote-unquote save them and civilize them that you end up neglecting and boycotting the 5% who are there and who are getting picked apart by the 10%, So, you have to really be about self-preservation when you're doing this type of work, and make sure that you're not putting yourself out there in a way or allowing lines to be crossed in a way where now you're not serving the population that actually needs you. Okay, so that's just a little bit of advice. I know a lot of my listeners are entrepreneurs and have different ideas and missions that they're launching. Even people come for readings, and I want to get this started, get that started, and we talk about it. And fortunately, I have a lot of experience in business, from a very, very, very young age, younger than you would imagine. I've been running my own businesses. So, and that's not to say that I'm an expert, but I've probably made 95% of the mistakes that most people will make, in running a business. Because when you start young, a lot of times you have energy and you're more forgiving with your mistakes. So you can make a mistake like, whatever, I can go over here and make some more money, and it doesn't catch up with you until later. It's like, I should have did it this way, should have that way. I burnt myself out. So I just give that little gem, and you could just put that as an addendum to the 2014 financial spiritual reading, the financial year spiritual reading, which seems to really be giving back to people. I've had a lot of people contact me in appreciation for that reading I did, and what Ifa brought forth for that financial year of January 1st, 2014, and people are seeing it play out in their world now, in their life, and seeing like, this is why you said do this, this is why you said do that. So, it's great that people are able to get a higher level of information now and use that to make something happen for themselves. Because that's what it's really about, not just sitting on the information. Make something happen for you, and then make something happen for we. Okay, we cannot do this by ourselves. No matter how strong we look, no matter how much of a superhero your neighbor looks or your friend looks, trust me, they need your help. Okay, so, we definitely have to, follow the tenets of each one, teach one, each one, reach one. Okay, so very important. But in any event, I'm going to get into this show, and we're going to cover Pan's Labyrinth as well as Valentine's Day. I think we'll start with Valentine's Day, and then we'll go right into Pan's Labyrinth right after this. Okay, I'll be right back.
We thank you for your listening support and urge you to become an active participating member of the ANU community. Therefore, if you would like more information on ANU events and offerings, please sign up for our newsletter at anunation.org. That is ANUNATION.org. For all those listening, if you'd like to move closer to the calculations and fundamental understandings of the ANU order, be sure to pick up the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. If you desire a spiritual reading to help you map your current spiritual position in the face of the world and learn the greatest pathways for your fortune in this season, or you would like to become a student of the ANU spiritual order, you can go to saduluhouse.org. That is SADULUHOUSE.org. If you would like to sponsor or advertise on this or any of our other broadcasts, please contact us at 1-800-ANU-LIVING. That is 1-800-268-548-464. Or email us at questions@anunation.org. That is the word questions@anunation.org. For more information about Orisha and Orisha products, you can go to OrishaReligion.com. That is OrishaReligion.com. ANU Nation thanks you for your continued support. Be well.
Okay, so I think what I want to start with, we're back, and we're going to start with Valentine's Day as our first decoding and demystifying exercise. And for all those who are just tuning in, who missed the very important and crucial announcements and housekeeping in the beginning, I am Yuya Assaan-ANU, Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order, Head Instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Center, where we specialize in spiritual self-actualization and soul ascension. Okay, some of you who probably listen regularly say, the we specialize changes from show to show. That's because I don't really come with any gimmicks. I don't have like a branded tagline or whatever. I just I know what we do. I know what works. I know what results we get. So sometimes when I'm giving that little station call, let people know like who they tuned into or whatever, and I say, well, it's Sadulu House. I just think about all the things that Sadulu House means. One of the most important things that Sadulu House means to me is a place for children to learn spirituality. That's actually how Sadulu House started. For those who do not know, it started as a children's school for esoteric information. That's how I started. And I started many, many years ago, which is two little boys who I pretty much would, I raised them. I had them. They lived near my home, and they would come every single day, to my house. Baba Haru, we're home from school. And, I would teach them little things. So it got to a point where they didn't want to go to church anymore. They were going to this Catholic church. So their mother came to my door one Sunday morning and was like, listen, my children don't want to go to church anymore. So I said, well, make them go to church, you the mother. And she said, I don't think they should, because the stuff they've been explaining to me is like, my mind is blown. I never knew all of these things. And these little children, because at the time they were like, they were like 4 and I think 6, 4 and 6, something like that. Yeah, either 4, it might have been a little bit older, because I know one was like in preschool, another one was, like one a little further ahead. So I had set up, a little curriculum for them, and, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so I had to make it more official. And then, of course, the parents wanted to get lessons. So then once the parents wanted to get lessons, it was like, you know what, okay, so we might as well just keep going on with this. And, like I always said, instead of following the traditional Ile model, instead of a traditional Ile, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to keep it going through Sadulu House. And I had the ANU temple at the time. I was doing temple services and working with people locally. We would meet at the temple, and it was going really well, So that, when I think of Sadulu House, that would really be the tagline, a place where children can, learn about their real consciousnesses and not stumble into it years later because of a college lecture. But in the event, like I said, we're going to start at Valentine's Day. I think I promised Valentine's Day. And I know it was a little tangentizing that just happened there for a moment. But in any event, like I said, we're dealing with Saint Valentine. Okay, when we have Valentine's Day, so that the whole world be whole word would be Saint Valentine, the whole phrase. And what's important with this is that there's a direct correlation with the movie Pan's Labyrinth and Valentine's Day, because in effect, Cupid or Cupido, who you know as a little chubby boy with the arrows, who shoots people when they fall in love. Well, one of his original names was Lupercus, or Lupercalia, okay? And this was a Roman myth taken again from Babylonian mysteries and taken even further back. It was even older than that, because we have history of that also in Kemet, but the names changed as well as the actual rituals, because when the Romans get things, they tend to romanticize it, and it gets very different. Okay, but originally, when we were dealing with that science of Lupercus or Baal, the saying Baal or Baal that you see in the Bible, who was, that idol. It was said that Baal was the chief idol or the chief pagan or symbol for jealousy. Okay, because this ties right back into our understanding of Cupid, love, Valentine's Day, and I want you, or I want this. In fact, that the name Cupid actually means desire. It means desire, Cupid. Okay, so that's where we get that symbol in the Bible of Baal being those things that we desire and we want for. Okay, now of course, when you have Baal, it's Ba and Al. Okay, Ba. So you have in Kemet we have Ka, we have Ba, Kat, Ket, Kaet. Okay, we have these different in Medu Netir. Okay, and Ba represents that greater spiritual energy, and Al, I've said it 100 times. When we see that, we got God. Whoever's writing notes, I'm sure you probably already wrote that part. So in any event, so Pan, Lupercus, who was also Cupid, who was also Eros. Remember I did the show on psychology, psyche, and Eros. Okay? Eros is Cupid. That's the Greek form of Cupid. Lupercus or Lupercalia is the Roman form. Okay? So you have Lupercalia, you have Eros, you have Pan, coming from they think, coming from the Babylonian mysteries. Okay, we have Pan. Okay, now if we take this to our Coptic or Gnostic information or mythology, Pan or Baal would be Nimrod. Okay, so remember in the Bible, Nimrod. Now Nimrod was actually originally known as like a hunter. Nimrod was like a form of Ogun. Okay, and Nimrod, we'll get into it. So let's go back. All right, so we're dealing with Valentine's Day, right? For all who may not know, Valentine's Day is celebrated on February 14th. So I don't celebrate it. I barely know the date. And originally, that celebration period is something I want you guys to know. When we're looking at these celebrations, before you always just scoff your nose up at oh man, that's crazy, just some pagan or whatever you want to call it mess. These celebrations are always superimposed on top of a righteous celebration. Okay, so just like you have December 25th, the celebration of Saturnalia. Saturnalia is not necessarily a bad thing. It's what it was romanticized to become, okay, with the wild orgies and the craziness that's associated with Saturnalia, okay? And then, again, what was superimposed on it, the birth of Jesus, which was impossible for it to be the 25th of December. But aside from that, it started off with a proper root. And as you'll find, most of these holidays or pagan holidays, however you want to look at them, or celebrations, they usually have a root in some form of astrology or astronomy. There's usually dealing with some cosmic or astrological event that's reoccurring. And these holidays were a time to not only celebrate the event, but to give deeper and greater meaning to it for children, really, for them to understand. So when you're dealing with the period, the original celebration was from February 13th to February 15th. Okay, it was a 3-day event. And what it really was, it was to mark the middle point of that winter solstice. Okay? It was to mark the middle point. That's what this really was about, because it was said that once this winter solstice was over and spring comes, that now it's really like time for things to rise and grow. This is time to make babies. So it eventually became a celebration and ritual and rite in fertility. Okay, we're still dealing with this quote-unquote Valentine's Day, which that got its name from Lupercalia. Okay, or Lupercus. It was a feast that was had every year, and there were certain things that were done. For instance, one of the things they would do is that they would take, they would have like a I don't want to call it a grab bag, but they would have young girls put their names in a bag, right? And then the men would come and they would pull from that bag, and what would happen is, whoever they picked, they were allowed to have, or would be their sexual partner between that moment and the next year for the same celebration. Okay, that would be their partner. Now, in the Babylonian system, they didn't have those same grab bag games, but they had a festival called Ombok. Okay, and Ombok was the same exact thing. It was when they would celebrate the midway point between the equinoxes, when the sun would reign again over the power of darkness. The Son of God would reign over the power of darkness. This is very important that you understand this. Okay, and what was thought here, because there was a lot here where we get the Catholic piece. Okay, in the Babylonian system, we had, like I said, we had Nimrod, which was Baal, and we had Ashtoreth. Don't confuse Ashtoreth with Astarte. Okay, they're not the same. Sometimes I hear people try to break down the information on this, and they'll say that Ashtoreth is Astarte. It's not. Astarte is where we get the word Easter. Okay, that they're different archetypes. Okay, so Ashtoreth, she was considered to be the greatest Yanla, as we say in Yoruba, or the most revered woman of heaven. Very important, the most revered woman of heaven. That's who Ashtoreth was. And you had Ashtoreth, and you had Nimrod. And Nimrod was the hunter. It's the same Nimrod that you have in the Bible. Okay, the same one. Okay, and Nimrod was a man who was an architect, but he also was a founder of civilization. Just like Ogun's iron, on his technology, civilizations are built upon it, right? And one of the civilizations that he built was Babel. Now, Babel we know as, because we know the story of the Tower of Babel, and the people said, if we put our mind to it, we can reach the heavens because we have done so many great works that we should be where God is. And God looked down and said, if these people continue, they will reach up here, so let me confuse their speech. And that story really, the science of that story was to speak about the power of the human will. It was the power of the Ori, and the fact that there are gifts that we come to the planet with that are not necessarily waiting for sanctioning, anointing, and ordination by who you call your God. Because even your God will say, oh man, because of what they're born with, I got to stop this. And that's what the science of Babel was. But at that time, Babel was Nimrod was one of the actual kings of Babel. Okay, and it's a whole long thing. When he died, he had a queen. His queen Semiramis. Remember that name, Semiramis. 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 Very important. Okay, so when Nimrod went, when he went on, he was later then worshipped as the idol Baal, or who we know in Islamic tradition, Balal. Okay, Balal and Baal and Pan. It's the same name. Even the name, or Bell, B-E-L-L, you know what we use to sound things? Because if anyone here knows anything, those listening about Islam, Bilal is the one who sings. He sings the call to prayer and the call that the messenger is coming. He's the crier. So whenever you're in those regions and you hear that singing, that's Bilal doing that. Okay? But it's also where we get the word bell. Now, you know, in the Catholic Church, you have the church bell. And when you ring the bell, it's time to come for service. You see how, you see how people, they just borrow things, and then after they borrow it, they say it's evil. You know, it's really deep. But anyway, so you have Baal, you have Bel, even Balim or Balim, okay, and Molek Aziz. These are all different forms of